Classes and specs on Cataclysm are pretty equal in terms of their strengths and weaknesses, and even the differences between your top 5 or 6 specs are really mild. That being said, there are 5 to 6 specs that I think are above all the other ones. This changes depending on the patch, but these are my top 5. I'm gonna give the 5th place to the Unholy Death Knight. My personal favorite, the class that I got the highest rating ever with on Cataclysm, 2800 rating in 2v2. I was multi-rank 1 Unholy Death Knight on Twin Star Cataclysm, one of the most well-known Cataclysm World of Warcraft private servers. Unholy Death Knight really has got everything except mobility. Death Grip is an amazing cooldown that doesn't give you mobility, but you're able to grip your enemies to you, and it is amazing, especially in battlegrounds. If you want to kill someone, you're the one setting up the kill. You have decent crowd control. You have Chains of Ice. You have Desecration applied with your Plague Strikes and Necrotic Strikes, which you're using a lot of, so the snares will be applied all around the map. You have decent healing. You could be death striking, but it's not really very advantageous because it costs you 2 runes. But you can Lichborn yourself, heal with death coils, all the way from 0 to 100 easily, combined with anti-magic shell especially. And you have your death bag on 2-minute cooldown. You have really good defensives against casters especially. That's where most melee classes are weak against, because your anti-magic shell is an amazing cooldown against any spell damage. You also have anti-magic zone, and you have Icebound Fortitude to remove both stuns and give you flat out defensive. You are one of the very few classes that are actually able to solo healers, so you yourself are suitable to play with a healer on your team in 2v2. You have insane pressure with necrotic strikes, but also with the dot damage and the damage from both your ghoul and your gargoyle. On a 3-minute cooldown, gargoyle is dangerous. Unholy Death Knights are amazing in every single bracket. 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 battlegrounds. They're always welcome. They're one of the best classes. They have plenty of arena comps they can be played in. They're also a pretty complex class since you have a lot of pet management to take care of and also rune management. So it's not the best choice for beginners, but usually a little bit of an easier choice than compared to, let's say, most casters. All that being said, a very solid 5th place. Could go even higher actually, but for the 4th place, I'm gonna go with Feral Druid. Feral Druids are kind of the opposite of Unholy Death Knights in terms of mobility, because Druid is the most mobile class, and especially the Feral spec. It can do crazy damage. You can apply your bleeds on multiple targets, so if you want to kill 2 targets at the same time, no problem. They have some of the best defensives in the entire game compared to any class in spec. Your frenzied regen, your bark skin on just 1-minute cooldown. You have insane crowd control. You can use your instant clones or roots every few seconds. You can use Nature's Grasp for instant roots on anyone that touches you. You can cyclone, even hardcast cyclone, whatever you want to. And you also apply snares to your targets automatically, which is amazing. You are by far the best flag carrier in battlegrounds. You dominate in 1v1. Have some of the best comps in the entire game for 2v2, 3v3. Just overall an amazing choice. And even if you don't know how to play a Feral Druid, just by going bear form and pressing whatever, you will still do fine. Feral is still a very complex, high skill class. So if you want to be a rank 1 Feral Druid, you will have to know your shit. And again, Feral Druid could easily go all the way up to number 1, to be honest, it's so good. For number 3, Affliction Warlock. Finally, one caster in our list. You like defensives. You have a flat out damage transfer, I will call it, to your pet via Soul Link, so you take a little bit less damage. You like mobility. The only mobility cooldown you really have is the teleport, which is amazing, but it is on a 20-second plus cooldown, and you have to also place it properly, of course, to teleport you to the right place. You also lack snares. The only real snare you'll be using is Shadow Flame, possibly Curse of Exhaustion, but not really, and it's very weak. But what you do have is some of the best AoE damage in the entire game. So if you're into battlegrounds, I want to see high DPS numbers. You can't go wrong with Affliction Warlock, especially if you like the multi-dotting playstyle, taking the damage on multiple enemies at the same time, multi-dotting them with your unstable afflictions, your curses and corruptions. Then Affliction Warlock is a class for you. Unstable Affliction also works as a dispel protection because when the enemy dispels your unstable affliction, they get both damaged and they get silenced. You have some decent healing. You have your Drain Life that you can use on a target that has dots on himself and actually heals for a decent amount. That being said, Affliction Warlock is decent in 1v1, not so good in 2v2. There are very few comps I would recommend you playing, but where Affliction shines especially is 3v3 and BG. So honestly, if we were talking about just 1v1 and 2v2, Affliction Warlock wouldn't even be among my top 5. But it's so good in 3v3 and BGs that it kind of makes up for it. But now that I'm thinking about it, I would probably place it lower. He's going to number 5. Yeah, I changed my mind. It's not that good, but it's still an amazing class to meet. Making top 5 out of all these specs. Okay, number 2. Man, this is a tough one. I'm gonna give it to Marksmanship Hunter, but it could go either way. Marksmanship has literally some of the best comps in the entire game for both 2v2, 3v3. 1v1 is still amazing. Can be kind of countered by a few classes in 1v1, and in BGs it's still very welcome. Has an insane burst, especially in a combination with Rogue or a Feral in 2v2, deadly. Within seconds it can kill you. Has rapid fire, deterrence for defense, and man, imagine having those amazing cooldowns and being also able to reset your cooldowns. With readiness, you're able to rapid fire again, deterrence again. How much more overpowered can you get than resetting your most powerful cooldowns? Are attacking from afar, so it's really hard to get to you to begin with. Plus you have those insane traps, scatter shots, freezing trap, monkey stun, so much crowd control. Then if the enemy actually gets to you, you can still disengage away from them. Like Marksmanship Hunter's got it all, honestly. He's not really missing anything besides maybe heals. The Chimera shot heals aren't as strong as they could be, but hey, it's overpowered enough. It's second place and very deserved. And I keep saying that in every single video, and anybody asks me about the most overpowered class on Cataclysm, I say it's Subtlety Rogue. It's just so amazing throughout the entire game, but especially on the last patch with those legendary daggers and trinkets. It's just deadly, devastating. This class not only has some of the best crowd control in the entire game, if not the best, doesn't even have to cast its crowd control, like some druids with cyclones or mages with polymorphs, has unreal defensives, combat readiness making you essentially immortal, evasion making you unhittable in melee, cloak of shadows making you immune to any spell damage, vanish to straight up escape the fight altogether, and then you can also reset your cooldowns just like the Marksmanship Hunter. Recuperate healing, recuperate ticks for 3 to 5% HP every like 3-4 seconds, and you can have it on yourself pretty much permanently. That's what you should be doing. Plus it regenerates your energy. Insane single target damage, not so much multi-target. The king of 1v1, totally rank 1 viable in 2v2 in many comps. 3v3, every second 3v3 team has a Subtlety Rogue in it, and a fucking amazing in any battleground group for ninja capping, for defending bases, crowd controlling the enemies, and even the straight up damage is just so amazingly overpowered and subtlety. You can't go wrong with this spec. But again, as all the other specs in top 5, it is really demanding in terms of your skill level. The difference between a decent rogue and a pro rank 1 rogue is insane. The gameplays you can make with the subtlety rogues are completely out of this world. Couple things I forgot to mention. Affliction Warlock, some of the best crowd control in the game also. So you can see most of these classes have unreal crowd control, and Holy Death Knight, even that one's got some decent crowd control with Strangulate Silence, Pet Stun, Pet Leap that can also root your target or interrupt it, Death Grip for interrupt, and your snares with chains and desecrated ground. Affliction Warlock has death coils, has literal fear spam, much like Druid can spam its cyclone. Warlock can spam its fears, has also instant fear on AoE, and some extra ability depending on what pet you're using. For Affliction it's usually Fell Hunter with its silence / interrupt and also buff removal. With Druid I forgot to mention insane off healing, life blooms, rejuvenation, and even regrowth, which you can also cast instantly with the buff, just like with Cyclone and Roots. Frenzied regen healing, also insane, literally makes you immortal even against 5 enemies. I didn't mention marksmanship damage. On AoE it sucks, but it's more about the single target and you crowd control the other enemy, so that's the marksmanship hunter playstyle. And that's it. These are my personal top 5. After playing on Cataclysm for 10 years now, very solid top 5 honestly. Other classes and specs that could make it near top 5 would be Retribution Paladin, amazing class with insane healing and DPS. Then it could be Frost Mage, crazy burst and crazy crowd control. Then if we talked about 3v3 and Battlegrounds especially, it would be the trio Fire Mage, Shadow Priest, and Elemental Shaman. All these three especially excel in 3v3 and BGs. The more targets you face, the better they usually do. And then for healers, I think worth mentioning is Holy Paladin. Unbelievably simple, because you literally don't have to cast ever, yet extremely effective with the best straight up healing and the simplest playstyle. And also Resto Shaman. Resto Shamans got super buffed. Their Riptide and their totems can literally keep a target alive without even a single cast. And if you need to cast, then Healing Surge for a quick cast and effective healing, or Greater Healing Wave if you can afford to hard cast a longer cast time spell. It heals for like 50% easily every single time. So this is my list, my top 5 classes and specs on Cataclysm PvP. Definitely Affliction Warlock, Unholy Death Knight, Feral Druid, Marksmanship Hunter, and Subtlety Rogue. Solid top 5. If you agree, disagree, have different experiences and opinions, share them in the comments. I read all comments. Like the video if you liked it. Tell me if you'd like to see a similar video about something else. And I will see you in Cataclysm PvP.